we're going to give a brief highlight of what we're doing. We do ask that if you have questions or please use the raise hand feature or use the Q&A function. So quick update from these three, and then we'll get to your questions. Tanya, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Annalise. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Abortion is healthcare. And the people of Wisconsin have been without this critical healthcare since Roe was overturned. This healthcare is critical, it's necessary, and Wisconsin has been without this care for over a year. When Roe was overturned, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin had to make the agonizing decision to suspend abortion services. And PPWI needed to do that to protect providers from the possibility of being charged under an archaic abortion statute. And, you know, these providers, these are individuals who care for the community, care for patients, and it's essential that they be protected from being prosecuted. Since the Supreme Court decision, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin has maintained that there were two paths to resuming abortion services: legislative and a legal path. A court ruling under the Attorney General's lawsuit in Dane County confirmed that the 1849 law is not enforceable for voluntary abortions. So with patients and the community as our central priority, as our driving force, today we are eager to announce that Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin will be resuming abortion care on Monday, September 18th. The appointments will open today and care will begin on the 18th. As a result of this, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is again able to provide the full scope of sexual and reproductive health care, including abortions, to anyone in Wisconsin who needs it, no matter what. I'm very excited to introduce to you Dr. Allison Linton. She's Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin's Associate Medical Director, and she'll give more specifics from a healthcare perspective. And following her will be Michelle Velasquez, Legal Director for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. Dr. Linton.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining today and helping to inform people across the state that they can now receive abortion care again in Wisconsin. The ability to provide abortion care and abortion services in Wisconsin is crucial to being able to address the full spectrum of care that our patients need. Patient care has always been and will always be our central priority and concern. This decision to resume abortion services was made thoughtfully in consultation with attorneys, physicians, and important partners and stakeholders. As Tanya mentioned, beginning this Monday, September 18th, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin will resume providing full spectrum reproductive health care services, including abortion care. Schedules will open today for patients to book appointments beginning Monday in both our Water Street Milwaukee Center as well as Madison East Health Centers. To schedule an appointment, we ask that individuals please visit ppwi.org or call 844-493-1052. As is always the case in healthcare, there are staffing and logistical considerations, and we will be working in the coming weeks to continue to expand access to appointments and to return to our pre-Dobbs levels. We are making this decision now because we know that Wisconsinites cannot and should not wait any longer to receive this essential and life-saving care in their home state. Patients who walk through our doors can know that they will receive the comprehensive, high-quality, non-judgmental, and confidential reproductive health care they deserve. We do have a long road ahead of us in continuing to expand access to abortion in Wisconsin. And I know I am joined by my colleagues and many in the medical community in saying I'm incredibly grateful to be taking this very important step on that path forward. I'll now turn it over to Michelle Velasquez.
Thanks, Dr. Linton. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining. My name is Michelle Velasquez. I'm the Director of Legal Advocacy and Services for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. We are confident from a legal perspective that abortion care can be provided in Wisconsin. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin has maintained since the Dobbs decision that Wisconsin Statute 940-04, which has been commonly referred to as the 1849 criminal abortion ban, was not enforceable and did not automatically spring back to life when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last summer. However, in the wake of the Dobbs decision, we had to make the decision to suspend abortion services, as Tanya said, really to protect our physicians, clinicians, and other support healthcare staff because of the real threat of those who believed that the law just sort of automatically sprung back to life and were really willing to try and enforce that law. We've also consistently said since the Dobbs decision that there were two paths to restoring access to abortion in Wisconsin. That first path was a potentially legislative one, and that second potential path was a legal one. On July 7th, the court that is hearing the Attorney General's lawsuit issued a decision denying the defendant's motion to dismiss the lawsuit. And in that decision, the court said unequivocally that Wisconsin Statute 940-04 does not prohibit abortions and that it is a feticide statute. The court again reiterated that position in a separate decision and order on August 14th of this year. So with this clarification and confirmation from the court at this time that Wisconsin Statute 940-04 is not enforceable against consensual medical abortions, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is able to legally, lawfully resume abortion services in Wisconsin, and Wisconsinites no longer have to travel outside of this state to receive the essential life-saving care that they deserve.
Thank you, Michelle. Happy to take questions now. Alex, I saw your hand was raised. We'll take a question. Again, use the raise hand feature or the Q&A feature. We'll start with Alex. Jack, if you could unmute Alex, please. Alex, sure. Alex, go ahead.
If you don't mind. One, I see that Madison and Milwaukee services are resuming, not Sheboygan County services. Is that because DA Urmanski has been a bit more explicit in his willingness to prosecute under this ban? And my second question is, it seems unlikely given her July ruling, but if Diane Schlipper, Dane County Judge Schlipper does issue an adverse ruling in the future, would you shut her services again?
So I'm happy to answer the first question about Sheboygan. Our intent is absolutely to resume services in Sheboygan. It really is truly a staffing and logistic question at this time. So we know that it's important to not only have access, but also reliable access. So we will be working in the next coming weeks to hopefully restore access in Sheboygan as well.
Thank you, Alex. Oh, did you have something to add, Michelle?
No, I was going to answer the second part of
perfect.
If I can remember the second part of the question. Alex, would you mind repeating that second part, please?
Happy to, yeah. In Judge Schlipper's July ruling, she kind of made it sound like she would prohibit prosecutors from going after providers under the 1849 law. If she happens to not issue that order, would you stop your services?
That's a good question. So Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin has to, of course, always provide healthcare within the purview of what the law is. So unless or until there's an adverse decision, whether it be from this court or another court that may hear this case, we would continue to provide services until or unless such time there's a ruling explicitly prohibiting abortion services in Wisconsin.
Thanks, Michelle. Jess Van Egren with the next question.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thanks for holding this press conference. I had a quick question. With resuming abortion care, are you reverting right back to the state law that was already in place? And if so, just reemphasize what that is, please. Thanks.
So yes, we will be resuming services under the same sort of restrictions and laws that we were following prior to the Dobbs ruling. So that includes a variety of restrictions, including a 24-hour waiting period, a 20-week ban that's written by post-conception, so 22 weeks last menstrual period or 20 weeks post-conception. There's a parental consent law. There's a mandatory ultrasound law. So we have a variety of restrictions in Wisconsin that existed before last summer, and those are what we will be reverting to now, which is again why I mentioned that our goal is to continue to expand access to services in Wisconsin moving forward. Today is not the end of that sort of path.
I'd also like to add just a little bit about the restrictions in relation to medication abortion. So Wisconsin law requires that the same physician see a patient over the course of 2 visits to provide medication abortion services. The law also requires that those visits both be in person and that the physician be present when the medication is dispensed. So Wisconsin law, the framework for providing abortion services, at least in the medication abortion context, prohibits the use of telemedicine. It prohibits the use of direct-to-patient mailing. It would prohibit the ability to receive those medications from a pharmacy, for example. So, as Dr. Linton already mentioned, Wisconsin law is pretty restrictive. And while this is an important first step on the path, there is a long pathway ahead to protect abortion for the long term and to really expand access and remove unnecessary barriers.
Thanks, Michelle. Tony Aria with the next question.
I think it's me, but maybe it's under Tony. I have a question, just kind of regarding the last year and a half. Obviously, you guys have not been providing this healthcare for quite some time. Can you talk about the impact that not having this healthcare has had on our communities, and maybe some anecdotal stories that you guys have heard to really humanize, I guess, the struggles that a lot of women have had to go through with not being able to provide some of these services?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to ask Dr. Linton to take the bulk of it. I would, in an overarching way, say that this has been devastating for women, devastating for people across the gender spectrum who need access to abortion. The people of Wisconsin, this has put the people of Wisconsin that need an abortion in some cases in dangerous situations. And certainly the barriers are great. And for some, the barriers were insurmountable. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Linton to share more details.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that we have seen so many examples that that over the last 400 and nearly 50 days of patients not being able to receive the healthcare that they deserve in their home state. So I think sometimes it was people coming in just for routine healthcare and learning that for the first time that they were not able to receive that in their home state. I think some of us sort of live and breathe this and think that everybody is aware of all of the nuances of abortion access in Wisconsin. For most of our patients, this is healthcare, and they're just coming in to receive services, and many times they're learning for the first time that is not accessible. And then having to learn that they are leaving their home community, that they need to figure out transportation, childcare services, sometimes even lodging. I think that there's definitely been a sense of frustration from our patients. There's a sense of overwhelm, and then also a pretty persistent or consistent sensation of fear of needing to try to figure out something just to receive the healthcare that they need. So I think to Tanya's point, we certainly have those anecdotal stories, and I have had the opportunity to travel with several members of Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin staff to go to Illinois and provide care there, which has just been an incredibly important opportunity to be able to continue to provide this care even when we can't in our home state. And I think there's been a powerful moment when we are seeing a patient in Illinois and we ask them where they came from and they said Wisconsin, and we say we are too. And there's just this immediate bond and understanding that all of us know that this is important care and that we will do everything we can to make sure that they can access it. At the same time, one of the things that always comes to mind, I know the patients I'm seeing, I don't know the patients that I'm not seeing. And so for all of the patients that we're aware of, we're also always thinking about the patients that may not have been able to access our care or know to reach out, et cetera. So I think that we have an understanding of what the last 450 days have meant for our communities, and yet it's an incomplete understanding because many patients, we don't know what they were going through.
Thank you. Next question from Caroline Bach.
Hey,
Caroline,
is this for me?
Yes.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm Cyria Samlin from WISN 12. I didn't want to cut in front of someone. I'm not Caroline, but I'm Cyria Samlin.
Oh,
Yeah, with WISN 12.
then go ahead.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't know how
Thank
you
you.
got
Thank you.
awkwardly named. It's fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thanks so much for doing this press conference with us. Can you talk about the process from July 7th with the judge's ruling to now? It seems that you're interpreting the judge's decision as grounds for being able to continue abortion services. Kind of what were some of the legal processes that went through coming to this decision? And do you anticipate any type of lawsuits against Planned Parenthood moving forward?
So I'll answer that. I'll answer that one. So the judge's decision in July, we absolutely recognize is not a final decision in this case, but I think there are some really important takeaways from that decision. First, the judge was extraordinarily clear that the court wasn't hearing any sort of arguments premised on the idea that the, again, Wisconsin 94004 that we were calling a criminal abortion ban. She was very clear in her decision that that statute does not, in fact, prohibit consensual medical abortions, that it prohibits feticide. And she based that analysis on a prior Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling from 1994 in a case called State v. Black. And so the only two courts in Wisconsin to have analyzed this law now, both subsections of it are the 1994 Wisconsin Supreme Court case and now the judge in the Attorney General's case. And both have concluded that it does not prescribe abortion, that it prescribes or prohibits feticide. In the court's second ruling in August, which was related to just some orders around scheduling and converting some motions to a summary judgment motion and asking for some additional information. In that decision and order, the court again said that 94004 does not prohibit consensual medical abortions, and in fact has dismissed with prejudice any arguments premised on the idea that it is an abortion statute, and also struck arguments from briefs, again, premised on the idea that it is an abortion statute. And so the court has already, opined on what the law is. And so really that's the legal clarification and confirmation that we at Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin needed to resume abortion services. Just as with anything, there can be differing opinions, and there may be folks who don't agree, and we'll have to take things as they come. But we are confident in our analysis, and we are ready to provide this essential care again, because there is really, in our view, not a reason to wait any longer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you could talk about how this is going to affect your staffing. Are you still going to be sending staff members to Illinois? And I know that the Sheboygan Clinic is not part of this, but will you be back at the same capacity that you were pre-Dobbs, or what's the capacity going to be like?
Great question. So while our formal partnership with PPIL for sending staff, that has sunset, so we are no longer sending staff to Planned Parenthood of Illinois. That said, we still are maintaining that partnership, appreciating how important having those partnerships are just in the Midwest in general, as well as just for facilitation of patient care for so many reasons. So we still have our partnership with PPIL, but we are not continuing to send staff anymore to provide care in Illinois at this time. And then from a Sheboygan perspective, so I think that, you know, healthcare is always tricky. It's really hard to flip a switch, but we are doing that to the best of our ability, acknowledging that we are not going to immediately be at our pre-Dobbs capacity. That is something that we're going to continue to work on over the next several weeks while we continue to ensure not only physician staffing, but also all of our amazing nurse and other clinic staffing. So yes, not immediately going to be at pre-Dobbs, but certainly our goal to get back there as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Jesse.
Hey, can you hear me? Great. Yeah, thanks for doing this. Just a follow-up logistic question on the last one. Just given your staffing issues, do you have any idea of what kind of wait times patients can expect when they call to make an appointment?
Honestly, we don't. We are going to be sort of adapting as fast as possible and as quickly as possible. So it's going to be sort of in constant motion over the next couple of weeks, looking at schedules from day to day. Again, comparing Madison versus Milwaukee, trying to figure out how we can create the best access as possible. But we were really deliberate in making sure that we did not resume services before we could commit to providing those consistent and consistent availability. So we do feel confident in our ability to staff those two centers moving forward. And then again, continuing to sort of re-examine and modify as needed to increase access the best as possible.
Thanks. I see Tony and Alex have your hand up, but I'm going to go to Adam first, as he has not asked a question. Adam?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, Adam with Swiss Politics. So I was wondering if other abortion care providers at other non-Planned Parenthood clinics want to start offering abortions. Is Planned Parenthood going to offer any sort of like legal backing or legal resources for those physicians and doctors?
Okay. I'm going to try to repeat the question back to you and see if I understand it correctly.
Sure.
If are other healthcare providers going to also begin providing abortion again? Is that part of the question?
If they do want to start providing abortion care again, would Planned Parenthood provide any legal advice for those physicians?
Well, we certainly can't give other healthcare partners legal advice. They have, they will have to follow their own legal advice. We're grateful for the many partnerships across the state that we have with healthcare systems, and they would follow their own legal guidance and based on their own legal teams. And Michelle, I'm going to add more to that.
Sure. We certainly always welcome thought partnership with other healthcare systems across the state who may provide abortion services. And I think it's important to know that Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is really the only provider of abortion care outside of sort of to protect the health or life of the pregnant person. There aren't other independent providers in the state. There was one health center in Milwaukee, Affiliated Medical Services, that is no longer in operation post-Dobbs. And as Tanya said, other health systems certainly have their own counsel and legal teams, and we're always happy to be thought partners with them. And ultimately, their decisions really rest with their own internal legal team, as well as other internal stakeholders, etc., and decision making processes that they follow.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks. Alex, go ahead.
Just curious if you guys are anticipating or preparing for any legal action, new lawsuit that could stem from reopening services. I know the Dane and Milwaukee DAs have kind of said they won't prosecute, but are you completely confident about that?
We are confident in the read that our attorneys, including Michelle, and the analysis that they've done. We are completely confident that it's been made clear that that the 1849 law does not apply to voluntary abortion. So we are very confident in that read and that analysis.
Ultimately, we can't control what other what other actors think about the law, their analysis, what they might try to do. And as Tanya said, though, we are absolutely confident in our read and analysis and our ability to resume abortion services.
Thanks. Tony? Oh, it's not actually Tony, I realize, but that's where you are.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Did the makeup of the Wisconsin Supreme Court changing to a liberal-leaning majority have anything to do with this decision? And secondly, would you be able to explain the difference between medical abortions and feticide abortions and what that means for the types of abortions that will be performed at Planned Parenthood?
So I'll take the first. I'll take the first question. That answer is no. This is a medical decision, not a political decision. The people of Wisconsin, could not wait any longer. We, again, really confident in the analysis of the ability to continue to resume providing abortion care. So, so this is a healthcare decision based on the needs of our state, not a political decision.
And I'll just,
yep,
sorry.
thank you.
I'll just add to that. We have been really working toward resuming care for a significant period of time since the first decision from the court came out in July. Resuming a service that we haven't provided in at that point just over a year took really careful planning. We really had to not only be sure that we were solid on our legal analysis, but we also had to make sure that our plan would work really well for patients and that they would have true access, predictable access. So all of that just took time to roll out. In terms of the second question, the court's decision, which references that 1994 State v. Black case, in that 1994 case, the Supreme Court really distinguished feticide from abortion. Feticide in that case was really about somebody who had battered their partner to the point at which she lost the pregnancy. In that case, the defendant battered his wife, who was just a few days away from giving birth, and the child died. So an act of feticide has been defined, at least at this point in time, by our Supreme Court as a non-consensual act in which somebody batters a pregnant person to the point they lose the pregnancy. And it's different from an abortion, which is a consensual medical procedure in which somebody is choosing, sometimes under very difficult circumstances for all sorts of reasons, but there is a consensual act there of a medical procedure.
And I just want to back on that. So the idea, when some people hear medical abortion, they think medication abortion. And I just want to be clear that Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is resuming both medication abortion as well as in-clinic or procedural abortions starting on Monday.
Thank you. We'll take a last question from Justin Egren.
Yes, I thought I had lowered my hand, but since you called on me, I'll ask it. Sorry. Milwaukee specific. Someone had mentioned affiliated medical services. As we know, that closed in the wake of Dobbs. It couldn't stay open. I would anticipate that the need for the Planned Parenthood services in Milwaukee would be greater, given that that clinic is no longer in existence. Do you agree with that? And just talk about a little bit, if you can, the specific needs of the Milwaukee community. It's a little bit more diverse and, social economically stratified than other parts of the state, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think that we are all planning and, I don't think we know specifically what the volume is going to look like or what the need is looking like, but exactly as you said, acknowledging that there used to be 2 freestanding abortion providers in Milwaukee prior to Dobbs, and now there will only be 1. We are anticipating potentially a greater need and a larger need to fill. So we, as I mentioned, we're going to be watching things very closely and trying to sort of respond as quickly as possible to where we are seeing the greatest need. As far as increasing access or sort of to the Milwaukee community in particular, our Water Street Health Center has been in Milwaukee since it opened in 2017. And before that, we had our Jackson Street Health Center. We also have a variety of family planning health centers throughout the Milwaukee area. And so we are, we care for this community. This is our community. So I think we are absolutely, we are aware that oftentimes our patients have different needs, and we will continue to respond to those however we can. We will still have support for funding and additional logistics support, travel support, et cetera, acknowledging that people, even Milwaukee or Madison, is still very difficult for many of our patients to receive care. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you are interested in either individual on-camera interviews or do have follow-up questions, please reach out to me via email. It's best to triage via email at this point, as my phone has been blowing up with this incredible news. But thank you again for joining us today, and thank you to Tanya, Dr. Litton, and Michelle. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.